of the Emissions Control and Strategies Unit. The rest of the members of ECSU are also here, specifically the point source team. They are Emily Phillips, Jing Wong, and Alma Mikey. This point source team is tasked with collecting, reviewing, and correcting emission reports, among other things, for the state of Georgia. It's extremely vital for regulatory and planning purposes that our emissions inventory is correct and robust. So with that, I'd like to get into the training outline for today's presentation so that we can further inform you all on how to best report emissions. So in this presentation, you will hear about CAERS, which is the Combined Air Emissions Reporting System. We'll also get into some HAPS guidance updates, followed by a submittal walkthrough. And after that, we'll actually have a live CAERS walkthrough, and we'll finish up with some further resources and also a Q&A time permitting. So we do recommend to hold any questions until the Q&A session. Next slide. So yeah, just getting into what CAERS is. CAERS is an EPA-developed application that allows industry, aka you all, to report emissions to their state agencies. This allows state agencies, local and tribe authorities to meet air reporting requirements, specifically the AERR, or the Air Emissions Reporting Requirements. This is a federal rule that mandates states to collect emissions to develop national emissions inventory. Thresholds for these criteria air pollutants are established in this rule, and we recommend those who haven't already to read through this rule, as it is the basis of emissions reporting. And it's also important to note that with hazardous air pollutants, reporting those in the state of Georgia is voluntary. So these HAPS emissions are used to pre-populate things like the TRI. So we always recommend for facilities that are able to report those. Next slide. So next I'll be going into the specific CAERS user roles. So right now there are two types of user roles, preparer and a certifier. Both of these account types can create initial reports. However, the difference between them is that a preparer account type can have more than one facility associated with it, but cannot certify reports, and vice versa for certifiers. So yeah, next slide. And with that, I'll be handing it off to Emily, who will get into some HAPS guidance updates.
Yeah, thanks, Ruben. So in 2023, EPA released the proposed AERR, and Georgia has been working to look into requiring HAPS reporting on our side. And so we've been working to account for that in our plans for any potential Georgia HAPS inventory until HAPS reporting is planned to be mandatory. So for the 2024 emissions inventory, we encourage facilities to voluntarily report HAPS to CAERS. We request feedback from facilities that voluntarily report, and that's focused on the process of completing HAPS and the timeline for submitting versus just submitting criteria. And like we said before, any HAPS submitted into CAERS will be available for use in the TRI ME web after certification to save some effort and not needing to report twice. So if your facility does choose to voluntarily submit HAPS, the process for entering them is identical to entering CAPS. One important note is that the HAPS should also be included in their corresponding CAPS. So for example, any volatile HAPS should also be included in the VOC total that's listed as a criteria. This isn't double counting. Any criteria air pollutant are treated separately from HAPS. They aren't summed together in any way. But something else to note is that while HAPS and CAPS are kept separately, HAPS can have some overlap. So avoid reporting HAPS that have an overlap, such as reporting total chromium and hexavalent chromium. That can cause issues. And HAPS should match what's reported in TRI if you are reporting to us. So now we'll go through the process of starting a point source emissions inventory. This process has three main parts. First, reporters need to update the facility and contact information. Next, they will determine whether the Title V facility qualifies as opt-in or opt-out. And finally, they will submit their emissions inventory report or their opt-out determination in CAERS. So the first step is to go into Gecko to update your facility information. Here is the link you'll have to register for an account if you've never accessed Gecko. Down at the bottom, returning users with emissions inventory access will have the facility names listed and the emissions inventory box checked. You will click on the facility name to access the emissions inventory form. And for new users, you will need to click the request access button. So this screen is where reporters request access to their facility, and make sure to check the emissions inventory box to review the admin users listed. So if the admin users are unavailable for whatever reason, check the box with regard to access, and we will also be sent an email and can assist you. If the admin users are available, an email will be sent to them, and Gecko will show a preview of that email. When you click on the facility name in the Gecko homepage, you will arrive at the facility homepage. So this is where users access the following: facility admins, user access, and emissions inventory form. The communications preference tab can be accessed here, but it's also something that we link in the emissions inventory form itself, which is intended as a walkthrough of all the steps before entering data into CAERS. So as I said before, the Gecko form is formatted to be streamlined. The first step, once you've entered in the emissions inventory application, is to review the facility information. Any facility information that is incorrect, please let us know by emailing the emissions inventory email listed. And something else to note is that the NICS code should match what's in CAERS. That's something we also check, but we would appreciate if you let us know that they're mismatched. Next, we'll want you to update your contact information, which includes your main emissions inventory contact and the CAERS user roles. The instructions indicate to update the main emissions inventory contact first via that link. So that link opens up the communications preference tab, and you will select the emissions inventory link on the left-hand side to access the input fields. Once you have saved the contact information, you can close out of this screen and return back to the main form. To update CAERS users, you may need to add or modify users. Contact information is important to fill out first in Gecko, because that's how we verify any requests in CAERS. So if it doesn't match if what's entered into Gecko doesn't match with CAERS, it could lead to delays in users gaining access to CAERS. So some things to remember is that you can change your users at any time throughout the year as needed, and the same person can be preparer and certifier. If your certifier is acting as the sole preparer, we do ask that you list them twice in Gecko, but it is unnecessary in CAERS to have two accounts. So this year, emails were sent to facilities, and we indicated if we expected a facility to be able to opt out, or facilities received a general reporting email. In the opt-out email, we listed the emissions inventory team's current potential to emit records for the facility. So the threshold, if those PTEs were below the reporting thresholds. And if those PTE were correct, we asked that the facilities use a PDF of that email as confirmation. It just streamlines it since we've already verified those numbers. Otherwise, if the facility disagrees with any of those potential to emit, they can submit a revised opt-out form that can be downloaded on this screen via that link. This screen also provides instructions for those new to CDX on how to register, and you can access and link to EPA's CDX through this CDX is basically the website that houses CAERS. So this is an example of the opt-out form. It's the same as it was in the previous year, except the emissions thresholds are updated for the annual reporting year. And if your facility must complete an opt-out form, you'll need to fill out the corrected potential to emit emissions and indicate whether that PT comes from a permit or application and list that permit condition or application number for us to verify. So once you're in CAERS, you'll begin your report and receive a series of questions before CAERS generates a report. So the first question is whether your facility was operating in the 2024 year. If your facility was not operating, then you'll be able to opt out without any additional information. The second question is about thresholds. So if your facility was below all of the thresholds, then CAERS will generate a blank emissions inventory report, and you'll attach either the PDF of your email or your opt-out form for verification. This is an example of that blank opt-out inventory report where you'll be able to attach a document and then certify and submit to us. If a facility is reporting above any threshold in the 2024 emissions inventory year, then CAERS will generate an emissions inventory report based on the previous year. So that brings us to the live CAERS walkthrough, having to do with the opt-in. So let me... Okay. So this is an example of the emissions report page. Our example is not just has for the 2024 year, but if you had reported in the 2023 year, and it would copy over essentially that report for you to then update any throughput numbers or operating hours that changed from year to year. There are kind of three main ways that you can report in CAERS. So I'll go over the first one now. It's the bulk upload template. So that's basically using an Excel spreadsheet separately from CAERS and then uploading that into CAERS. So the first step to do that is download an Excel. This takes a few minutes. So I have actually queued up a version here. So it has basically everything in the CAERS report in tabs. So you've got your facility basic information, any facility contacts you want to list, next code, which we handle, not something you need to change, list all of the release points, all of the emissions units, the processes for those emissions units, control devices, the control path, which basically serves as a way to group control devices, the control device pollutants, so which pollutants the control device controls, and then the control path pollutants. This is kind of a summary of all of the pollutants that all of the devices in a path all control. So it's kind of duplicated if you're only having one device in one path, but if there are multiple, then it serves as kind of a master list for that. And something to note is the percent efficiencies listed are not what's used in any automatic calculations in CAERS. They're just kind of for our records. Any total control efficiency is listed in the actual processing emissions page. This is just kind of for our records to know. And then apportionment is where the how much of emissions from one process go out, which release point stacks, and what controls are on those paths. Reporting period is where you have your throughput listed, and then operating details has to do with operating hours. And then emissions is where all of your different pollutants and their emissions are listed. And then this is kind of niche if you list an emissions factor that's actually a formula, that's where that would be listed. So we recommend using the bulk upload template if you have kind of a lot of throughputs that you've already tracked in a sheet. So for example, I have kind of mocked up this tracking for the units we'll use for this example. So the units that we're going to update for the bulk upload are these EG 400 units. This is actually representing a group of emergency generators. So something else to note about what we allow in reporting is we do allow units to be grouped if you have a lot of a similar type of unit, just for speed of processing or speed of reporting. Though they do have to have like a similar size. You can't group large and small generators together, for example. And if CAERS requires a unit design capacity, which it does for certain kinds of boilers and kilns and furnaces, a full list, I believe, is in the CAERS manual, but CAERS will also automatically request it if you've put in that kind of unit. We ask that you put the average design capacity in CAERS and then note in the comments that it's a average, and then provide a attachment with the more detail about each unit. And then you can sum the emissions for each. So this is kind of a pretend emergency generator that mainly uses diesel, but then has gasoline and propane as backup. So let's say for the 2024 year, so this is the numbers from 2023 that it's copied over. So we're going to say that for the 2024 year, the facility had 6,000 gallons of diesel and only 50 of the backup fuels. And then for operating details, it operated an extra hour for the diesel and then less of the backup. And then I'm going to go ahead and update the diesel numbers here. So a benefit of doing it this way is you can copy and paste any large amount of emissions, especially if you're doing not just like simple calculations. So more advanced like material balance or anything, you can just copy and paste into here in kind of in bulk if it's set up the same way. So we're going to save this, and I'll show you in a minute what happens if you don't update the emissions, but you've updated the throughput. So I've done everything that I want to do for this bulk upload template. So we're going to close it and go back to CAERS. So once you're done with your template, you'll upload the report using Excel upload. And this might take a few minutes, but hopefully it won't take that long on the test server. So once you're in here, you can go to the report creation log, and that lists everything that was updated using the bulk upload template. So that's a record of what's been changed. Once you have uploaded, you'll want to run quality checks in CAERS. So this is anything that's just number-wise that doesn't make sense. So you'll see a lot of these they're outside the range of that simple calculation because we didn't update the emissions in the bulk upload template. So we'll go to the data bulk entry and click Save Process. And this actually forces the processes to all automatically calculate if they are set to automatically calculate. So once you run your quality checks again, you'll see we don't have those errors anymore. So that does bring me to the data bulk entry. This is a method to use if your operating hours are pretty consistent and you just need to update your throughputs and any emissions that are manually calculated, and you just want to put in those numbers in CAERS. So if I update, I'll update these LK units for this. This is kind of representing a lime kiln. Something just quickly to note is that there are two processes listed. One is natural gas, so that kind of represents the fuel being burned for the process, and then the other is the actual lime being processed. So any fuel burning to facilitate a process needs to be separate. That's not why the fuel material is listed. Typically, the fuel material is a duplicate of the throughput material section in CAERS, and this is used for our non-point reporting. So let me go ahead and update these numbers and click Save Process, and then I'll update. You'll notice I get this warning because I also didn't update the fuel materials. I didn't do it for the emergency generators either. So I'm not sure why it's not letting me update that one. But if I update these here as well. Yeah. And then we still have, let's see. Yeah, and then we get everything's good. That doesn't throw a warning if the fuel material and the throughput value and fuel value are equal. And so that's basically on the process level for throughput. And then you have the emissions information tab for anything that isn't automatically calculated. So you'll see for this, I have the NOx is a material balance. So I want to change that. So that allows you to change these numbers manually, and it won't let you change anything that is automatically calculated through this tab. And automatic calculations are basically throughput times emissions factor. All right, so that's everything with the data, the bulk upload template, and the data bulk entry processes for reporting. So I'll send it over to Jing to go over the other way of reporting directly through CAERS.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily, for showing the updates through uploading templates and the data bulk entry. So I'm going to show you the other ways how can you work on emissions inventory through user interface. So once you log into CAERS, you will see once you click your facility name, we are still using same testing facility, and you will see 2024 report. So normally you probably already started working on emissions inventory. You can click continue. If you are brand new, you're gonna hit on creating new report. So for our example, we're gonna click on continue. So now you will see the user interface here. And basically from your left side is your menu. Your facility information is all here. Most of you probably very familiar with user interface. Just for your reference, we do looking for your facility inventory. So once you click on your facility inventory, there's a first menu is called the facility information. In this page, you will see a lot of your information regarding your facility. We do appreciate you keep this updated and then make sure you check to see if there's any information you want us to updating. We would be here to help you. Specifically, I want to point out for facility contact information, as each facility move on from year to year, your contact probably have some updates. We would appreciate that you can look into your emissions inventory updates and click edit to make that updates as is if it's necessary. For this part, you also need to make sure your emissions inventory contact be updated through our GACL. So as Emily mentioned, you do have a variety of ways to updating and also double check. Next thing is I want to mention is our emissions unit. Once you finish your you have done emissions inventory before, you probably see all your unit ID here. But if you do have a new unit added to the facility, you can through user interface add user plus sign to add your new unit ID and new unit information. As you can see with asterisk, that means is a required data field. This year, also EPA requires unit design capacity also need to be required information. So that information need to be filled in. For the presentation purpose, I did add a new boiler. It is a natural gas fired boiler. I entered information as required. Basically, your design capacity could be in the units of horsepower or the units you are having for that specific unit. As long as you get it from your manufacturer or from your user, from your facility. Once you have your user unit information entered, you're gonna enter your process information. For each process, for this natural gas fired boiler, you only have a natural gas as your process, but some boiler does use multiple fuel. So if you're using other than natural gas, you're gonna add new process here. So with the plus sign, you're gonna add your process ID here and the operating status. For new added process, definitely need to be operating. And also you're gonna give a brief prescription so that way you could indicate what process it is that. Once you click a search for button, you can put a description of that process. The system will search appropriate SCC code. We do see a lot of facilities doing great job to enter their specific SCC code. So, but we do see some facility use very genetic SCC code for miscellaneous process, which is very hard for us to help you to find your emissions factor and also find any expected pollutant. So if you do use a miscellaneous SCC code, we are here to help you find a more specific SCC code for your process. So that way you can pull a lot of help from the EPA website. So for my presentation purpose, I did fill in the information on my testing process already. I have a natural gas entered. Based on this SCC code, EPA will give you expected pollutant, and also for those most expected pollutant, they provide EPA emission factor already. So for 2024 EI purpose, once you come to this page, you want to verify your process information first, and then you're going to go to operating detail. You can click edit, so that indicate for 2024, how many days per week for this boiler has been used. For example, we are using 6 days per week. And once you click 6, your total operating hour will be updated automatically, and system will capture that. For example, we're gonna have 4 seasons operating percentage all equally. So I'm gonna change this one to 25. And then system also will kind of ask you to make sure it's 100% throughout your 4 seasons operating percentage. Once you make that updates, you can click a save. This is gonna move to next process. Next part of the important of your emissions reporting is your throughput value. So based on 2024, your facility's record, you can looking for, because this is a natural gas fired boiler, so the fuel option is gonna be natural gas only. So the system already smartly to leave your fuel option as natural gas. So first you come to the fuel material, click on natural gas, and then you look at your record to see how much fuel has been used for this 2024 reporting period. So this one for 2024, let's make example, is 350 million standard dry cubic feet of natural gas. As we can see, there's a copy button here. So we want to be able to take advantage of this green button. Once you click this, this information will copy to your throughput material column. So that number throughput value will be updated automatically. So we want to make sure you have your throughput material and the fuel material for this natural gas fired boiler has exactly tell the same story here. And then sometimes we do see facility forgot. They come check the throughput value, they modified throughput value, but then they forgot about the fuel material, and then they leave fuel value different from a throughput value. And even though the units are same. So we want a facility to make sure when you come to the reporting period, you want to make sure you enter your fuel material first, if you does use your fuel, and then you use the copy function to updating your throughput value. That way could eliminating some man-made mistake here. Another thing is we do notice some facility confused with heat content ratio. So we want to make sure for natural gas, your vendor probably have a heat content ratio for you. But if not, in our CAERS user guide, you can search for natural gas heat content ratio. And normally it's about 1,000 BTU per million standard dry cubic feet. So you can enter your heat ratio, heat content here. Once you finish this, make sure you click on save. That information will capture towards your emissions inventory reporting. Next, the major part is your emissions reporting associated with this process. As I mentioned, based on each SEC code, hopefully EPA webfire will give you expected pollutant. And also what you can find is based on your permits, you can find out for your process, for your specific facility, what expected pollutant for that process. So based on the EPA website, webfire, based on your source classification code, which is your SEC code, those emissions are expected. Pollutants are expected. Especially, I want to mention about PM because, as you know, our Georgia EPD has been required our facilities to submit at least 2 PM components. And I do know some facility have difficulties to find out their emissions factor or to find out their PM emissions. What we are here is help you. So for example, for this facility, does based on the SEC code, EPA does provide PM condensable, PM10 primary, PM 2.5 primary, and also they provided PM10 filterable and then PM 2.5 filterable emissions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a plus sign to add those emissions onto our 2024 emissions reporting. So now we can see PM10 filterable pre-populated here as soon as we click on. And then for your calculation method, because we wanted to check to see if you do have your CEM data, which is your continuous emissions monitoring system, we do appreciate that you're going to enter those information first. And also, if you do have a stack testing data, which is more specifically towards that process, that process, stack testing data, we would recommend you use those as your priority. But you still, if you do not have those information, we do recommend you try to check on emissions factor based on the peer review or based on your specific literature. US EPA emissions factor also is very good option. So for this SEC code, we're going to use US EPA emissions factor. So once you click a green button here to search, it will indicate what EPA's emissions factor is. So for this instance, this SEC code, we do see active B quality emissions factor. Their emissions factor for PM10 filterable is 1.9 pounds per million standard dried cubic feet. So we're going to choose that one. Once we select that emissions factor, as you can see, most of the information already pre-filled for you, so which is save a lot of entry process, and which is very time saving, increase your convenience. And also, once you finish that, you're going to choose emissions unit. We are going to be using ton as this emissions unit. Once you click on that, you're going to click calculating emissions. The system will calculating for you. So this is the beauty of the our CAERS submission. Once you have your emissions factor, and then the system will calculating for you, could avoid some man-made entering error. So once you have that, you're going to click a save. As you all know, Georgia also requires you to look into PM 2.5 emissions. As we can see, we have a PM10 filterable, and we want to look into to see PM 2.5 filterable emissions. What you can do is you enter PM 2.5. As soon as you enter the pollutant code, and the rest of information will fill up for you. And then same procedure, same logic. We want you looking at your CEM first, your stack testing data first. And then if you have better site-specific emissions factor from manufacturer, is also recommended to use, or you have some other emissions factor, which is valid and then be proved by state, then you can use it. And also, you can check on US EPA emissions factor. As soon as you choose US EPA, that factor, you can click on search button. Same thing, you're gonna search for active emission factor. And sometimes you will see those emission factor has been revoked, and then you will not be able to use those revoked emissions factor. So in this case, as soon as we click on select, the information will pre-filled for you. And then we're gonna use a ton as our emissions unit. And then you're gonna click it calculating emissions. Some facilities, if they are using different calculation method, such as your engineering judgment or material balance, then you have to click on I prefer to calculate total emissions of this pollutant. Then once you click this button here, you're gonna manually enter your emissions. Because we do have an emissions factor here, and then we do have our throughput value here. So we're gonna take advantage of this CAERS auto calculation function. We're gonna click this green button. The system will calculating for us. So I hope everyone, every facility would take a good advantage of this button, and then use this to avoid man-made mistakes when you're entering data here. And also, we do see some facilities doing, when they enter their emissions, they are truncate their emissions. They round it up to the tons or to the first maybe decimal point. As we can see, we do want to have total emissions, not truncate, and then basically as possibly as many decimal points you can allow. currently CAERS does have plenty space for your decimal point. So there's no need to rounding your emissions or truncate your emissions. So we want you to be able to fill in the emissions at least 6 decimal point. So you're going to save this, and then this is an example to show you how you add your emissions. And Emily already showed you the other ways to updating your emissions. Next thing is I want to talk briefly about control associated with this process. So when you scroll down to this user interface, you do see control is listed under this process. And we want you listing all controlled pollutant under your control device. And every pollutant has been controlled by this device need to be added here. So if you do happen to have a more pollutant need to be entered here, you click a plus sign and click once, and then you choose the pollutant. You enter the pollutant. The system will pull down the list for you, and then you can choose pollutant, and then make sure you enter your % reduction efficiency. Okay, so based on your record, what's your reduction efficiency? And then you enter here. Because I already entered the futurable and then PM 2.5 futurable, the system will not allow you to duplicate your pollutants here. So this is a way, how do you enter your controlled pollutant? Otherwise, the system will throw warning to you. Next thing is our control path pollutants. As we can see, this is already listed under if you are missing any control pollutant for this process, this control path, you're going to be able to use a plus sign to enter, similarly like you entered for control device pollutant. So next thing is want to quickly run the quality checks to see what quality. So once you click quality checks, you will see last run time. So it's 154. So we're going to click this again, make sure we captured the current. The arrows is required to be fixed. And as for this facility, because some emissions calculation was based on the non-emissions factor calculation method, so we do require attachments. So for your facility, what you need to do is you can send us your spreadsheet to tell us how do you use engineering judgment or material balance to calculating your emissions. You can simply attach your PDF file or your spreadsheet. A spreadsheet is more preferred, and then we can double check your emissions. Once you attach your attachment, this error message will go away. And for warnings, it's not required for you to make a correction, but as a state reviewer, we do check those warnings. Most preferred way is for you to address those warnings. You can leave us comment by click those warnings and then pull up the page. There's a comment field. So for example, if we are looking at our B001, our B001 process, P01 process, you can see there's a plenty of space. You can leave comments to us and to explain why you have emission increase or decrease over 20%. So if you give us comment, we're validating that, and then we don't need to come back to you again. So that will be appreciated during your reporting. So once you click each individual pollutants, if you do see there's a more than 20% increase or decrease, you can leave a comment to us. So that way our state reviewer, Emily, and our team and me, and we have some other engineers might review your submission. We can understand what happened to your facility, that specific updates. And your cooperation is very highly appreciated. So this is pretty much about our emissions user interface. Basically, we're here to help you. We still have some resources for you to look into. Let me just pull up my presentation slides, and you can see, sorry, I need to go to the presentation mode here. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so as we kind of towards the end of the presentation, this is our point source emissions inventory website screenshot. On this page, you can see we do listing our Georgia training regarding 2024 emissions inventory. And also we list some resources from EPA about EPA CAERS training. You are more than welcome to check out user guide here. And also we do have CAERS to the training for 2024 EI and some presentation slides information. Feel free to come to this website and to review some kickoff training and some presentation slides. We also to tell you how do you complete your opt-out form, since this year 2024 is annual cycle year. A lot of facility is going to be opt-out for 2024 emissions inventory. So you can click this link to show you how to complete your opt-out form step by step. Okay. Next slide is we're here to thank you. Your participation of emissions inventory reporting help us to really obtain and maintain accurate emissions inventory for state of Georgia, which is very important for us to reach our goal to improving our Georgia's air quality. We are really thank you for your hard work, your cooperation. We are here to help you. So our point source team with our manager, Ruben, who is kind of overview, watch over our point source emissions inventory team. And we do have Emily, who is expert of a lot of things and also expert of HAPS. And then me here to answer any questions regarding point source emissions inventory. You can always send email to us, emissions.inventory@dnr.ga.gov. We still have 2024 emissions inventory help session every Tuesday and Thursday at 10:30 on Teams. We're here to help you. Next thing is with this presentation, if you have any questions regarding 2024 emissions inventory, feel free to raise your hands or type in your question on the chat. We are here to help you now. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Jing. That was great. I do have a question because I'm one of the ones that have the hardest time with the PM filterable versus PM condensable. Because I noticed in the presentation you had your PM filterable separate, and then below it you had the PM primary. Is that double counting the filterable? Or would you do PM remind me, because I know I did this last year, but I've slept since then. You do PM filterable separately from PM condensable, but would you do primary?
Yeah. So I think Rebecca, you have a great question. Basically, EPA does want us to report all PM components. But as you know, PM components can be derived from at least two. So if you do report PM condensable, PM filterable, your PM primary is your PM filterable plus your condensable, right? So for my instance is because US EPA has provided all the emissions factor. So for my example, I give you all the speciations. So all 3 PM components I reported. It is not double counting, and it is just for the facility, you are not required to report 3 components all at the same time, but you are required to report at least 2 components. So for your instance, if you do not, or you do have emissions factor for all species, but you only want to report 2, or you can optionally report 3. But then, as you can see, the 3 the relationship is your primary is equals your filterable plus condensable.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So
And-
you're not double counting. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because on paper it looks kind of like you're double counting. So if you don't have an emission factor for say you just have old like PM emission factor, can you still assume PM10 equals your PM from way back to 20 years ago? And also, can you still use PM 2.5 or PM10 equals PM 2.5? Because there's very little PM 2.5 emission factors out there still. So you just kind of do your best engineering judgment on that and enter in the emission factor in the CAERS.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think that question could be also for EPA, because as we are working with the EPA very carefully and in CAERS, hopefully based on the SEC code, they have provide what PM emissions gonna be there. Because as you know, everything is evolving. For emissions inventory for CAERS, now they keep updating their EPA, updating their WEPFAR emissions factor. So if that's the situation, yes, what you said is correct. And then we're gonna make that assumption. But first of all, let's check on EPA's website, and then let's check on some other states. Do they have those PM emissions factor for that specific SEC code? And we do see some industry, they give us very generic SEC code, miscellaneous SEC code, which is really not very helpful because we cannot identify what process it is. So that could be based on the case-by-case situation. If you do have any facilities who have a similar PM questions, we are here to look into that process. First of all, we need to know what the SEC code they have. And then secondly, we're gonna check to see if there's any emissions factor EPA has provided. And if EPA don't have it, if other states have a similar SEC code or same SEC code, do they have any PM emissions factor? And most likely some AP42 still going to be valid to use, but some of the quality of emission factor could not, maybe not as great as we want. As you can see, when I show the US EPA factor, there is a quality. They will see B or
Right.
some see C or some see D. And then if your A or B is pretty good emissions factor, but then if you are falling behind, very bad, like it could be not high quality emission factor. So hopefully there is gonna be somewhere some people did work and have stack testing data or some other better emissions factor for that process.
Okay, yeah, carpet's not it's more of a niche nowadays than it used to be, and a lot of the data that we have is 25, almost 30 years old now. So yeah, and
Yeah.
I might take a gander at the take a look at the WebFire and see if there's anything that we can use for our future emissions reporting that might be better than. But I do have some stack testing as well. So
Yes, definitely your stack testing will be your best data, available data. And then if you do not, let us know, and then we can do some research. And also we can try to reach out some other states if there's need.
okay. I guess that's ours is pretty simple as far as the emissions reporting for carpet manufacturing, and because a lot of ours comes from the fuel usage from the boilers. Glad we don't have the co-boilers anymore. Those are getting a little difficult. But I don't think I have any more questions right now. My team, if they have anything, feel free to chime in, raise your hand.
Yeah. Thank you,
I-
Rebecca, for great questions.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I do like the CARES system. I'm glad we're doing that, because now that I've used it a few times, it's getting a little more intuitive, I guess, for myself.
Yeah, I think it's
Except for the PM part.
yes. I think so. I think the CAERS does evolving, and as we can see, every year they try to improve. So your feedback is very important to us too. So I think Emily showed bulk uploading templates and the data bulk entry. Those actually is very powerful too. So I hope our industry can take advantage of those functions and let us know if there's any questions or any help we can provide. So that's our job, to help you to understand how to enter those data and then enter those effectively.
Yeah, well, we greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for taking the time for us today.
Yeah, of course, anytime. And again, if you guys have any follow-up questions, you can definitely email us. We're also available for training sessions Tuesdays and Thursdays, I believe at the 10:30 time slot. So you can just email us, and if your question is in depth, we can kind of walk you through it. Yeah, so yeah, we're available, and again, appreciate the opportunity to present today, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. And again, you did say this was recorded, so
Yeah.
I'll be happy to send this out to our Georgia Association of Manufacturers distribution. So thank you so much.
All righty. Well, thank you all.
Y'all have a good afternoon.
Thank
too.
you. Bye.